Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome back. Um, Thank you for coming back. If you didn't notice, I took a week's rest last week, because the Bible stresses to us how important rest is. Um, and I did it because I don't want this to become something of a burden. And so I just wanted to take a rest and really put together something I thought was powerful, and really get into the studying so that I could bring something to you, not in a hurry. Um, or anything like that. So again, um, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad I'm back. I think I've done some really good studying. And we're going to get into this tonight. Believe it or not, this is my 10th video. And I just thank God for giving me the strength and the conviction, to do this every week. Again, I don't do it to preach to you, because I'm not a pastor. I say it all the time. I'm not a biblical expert. I'm not a theologian. I'm just someone who every day I get up and study this word. Um, I try to have an intimate relationship with God. And so I just want to share to you some of the thoughts I have about what I learn as I go, um, on this Christian journey. This week, I'm going to talk about, I guess the topic of it is God already knows. And the purpose of this discussion this week is just to show us and remind us that no matter what we're going through, there's no such thing as coincidence. There's no such thing as happenstance. God already knew what was going to happen to you each and every moment of your life before He breathed breath into your lungs. Before your parents gave birth to you, God knew what was going to happen to you. Um, so let's get into it. One of the most comforting and sometimes challenging truths, about faith is that God already knows everything about our lives. He doesn't just know about our past. He's not just concerned with our present, but he also knows our future. It can be comforting because it means nothing that we do or nothing about our life actually surprises God. Um, the things that catch us off guard, they never catch God off guard. Even when we don't know what's coming next, he does. And he's already prepared the way for us. Our mistakes, and this is the beauty of it, our mistakes don't disqualify us from his plan because he knew about our mistakes before we made them. And he still chose us anyway. It can be challenging because trusting God requires us to surrender. And if you've been with me since video one, the first video was about surrendering. Um, and trusting in God requires that surrender. God already has seen the path ahead of us. Um, so don't ever think he's just watching from a distance. He's actually walking with you through every step of the way. I got a couple guided scriptures that I want to use for this discussion. So let's get into it. The first guided scripture is Psalms 139 and 16. And it says, all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Um, and to me, what this is really just saying is before we ever took a breath, God saw every moment of our life. He saw every struggle. He saw every victory. He saw every wrong turn that we would take, but he also saw every comeback that we would make. He knew that we would fall short. He saw the mistakes we would make long before we made them, and he had already prepared the mercy we would need to recover from them. The situations that shock us in life don't surprise him. He had already built the path of redemption long before we ever knew we would need one. When we were celebrating our wins, he was already planning our next chapter. When we're at our lowest, he's thinking of the way out, and he's already arranged the help, the healing, and the lessons that will carry us through it. Even in the moments when we thought were detours, they were actually part of his plan. Sometimes we take the long way around, but thankfully, God has never lost sight of the destination. So, this truth allows us to be free from fear because God already knows the end in the beginning. Meaning before we even went through it, he already knew what was going to happen. So we should trust that he's guiding every step in between. We may be surprised by what happens in life, but God never is. What catches us what catches us off guard is actually part of his plan. What feels like a setback to us may actually be God setting things in motion for something greater. When doors close unexpectedly, when relationships shift, when opportunities dry up or storms hit us without warning, none of it disrupts God's plan because he has already accounted for this. So even in uncertainty, we can rest because we don't have to understand everything in order to trust God, the one who knows all. I think it's important to say that God does not guess or react, he orchestrates. Like a conductor guiding each instrument in perfect timing and harmony, God is arranging us, opportunities, and even challenges in ways we don't understand. We may hear noise, but he hears a symphony. We see disconnected pieces. He sees the final masterpiece. We want explanations, but he offers invitations, not to always understand, but to trust him. So just know that if God already knows what's ahead, then we don't have to know everything. So much of our anxiety comes from trying to control or predict that which is what's out of our control or out of our reach. We want answers before we move. We want clarity before we commit. But faith isn't about having the full blueprint. It's about trusting God, the one who holds it. Our job is not to be the planner, it's to be the follower. Peace actually comes when we stop trying to sit in God's chair and simply take our place at his feet. When we understand that God knows the end from the beginning, we can stop living in panic and start living in purpose. Um, the second guidance scripture comes from Ephesians 1st chapter, 11th verse. And it says, in him we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. We have to understand that we are chosen in advance and predestined, meaning God had us in mind and he had plans for us from the beginning. We are blessed because God chose us to save us. To be chosen means we were not an accident, we were not an afterthought or his backup plan. God didn't wait to see how our life turned out before deciding what to do with us. Understand that long before we were born, before our parents even knew our name, God already knew us, he loved us, and he wrote us into his story. To be predestined means our lives aren't random. It isn't luck. It isn't a coincidence. God didn't just save us from something, he saved us for something. Salvation isn't just about securing a place in heaven. It's about stepping into the calling that God has prepared for you before you existed. Our predestination is not random. It's aligned with God's specific purpose and will. As believers, we have an inheritance in Jesus Christ. This inheritance was not earned, but it was given to us by God's sovereignty, purpose, and will. This inheritance is a result of God's predetermined plan, not our own actions. The last guiding scripture that I'm going to use today is Proverbs 16 and 33. And it says, the lot was cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. Um, To be simple, this simply means that we may roll the dice, but God determines how they will fall. This scripture asserts that the outcome of casting lots was not determined by luck or chance, but was directed by God. To most observers, it might look like pure chance, but scripture reminds us that even in something that happened completely random, God was still in control. The lot may have been cast by human hands, but the final result is guided by divine sovereignty. This assures us as believers that God has a plan and purpose for everything, and He is working all things together for good. This doesn't mean everything that happens to us is good. Believe me, life is full of pain, disappointment, and sometimes even injustice. But it does mean that God is able to take every experience that we have, even those hard times, and turn them into something meaningful. What seemed like rejection may lead to redirection. Even our failures can become testimonies when we surrender to it. But know that this promise isn't for everyone. Scripture says that it's for those who love God and are called according to His purpose. In other words, when we walk with Him and trust Him, we can live with confidence knowing that our story is moving towards redemption, not ruin. We don't always see how the pieces fit together in the moment, but faith reminds us God is not improvising. He's very intentional. He doesn't just work in the good times. He works through all of our times for the ultimate good and for His glory. So, again, I just want to hit home and let you know that you're in God's hands. If you walk with Him, trust Him, He's got you covered. He already knows what's going to happen. So don't fret, don't be afraid. Just trust and believe in the Lord. I thank you once again for tuning in. And we'll see you next week. God bless.